Good evening, everybody. I am here to destroy a very growing myth about Kwhai Lenoard. Since the NBA Finals ended, this whole narrative, people calling Kwhai Lenoard Thanos and saying that he's a dynasty slayer. People are saying that he ended the Big Three Heat dynasty. He ended the Warriors dynasty. He ended the Spurs dynasty. And that's just ridiculous. I will discuss why in this video. Because it's just not really true. It's a myth. It's become a myth. So let's start with the first part. The Big Three Miami Heat. He did not ruin that dynasty for many reasons. Number one, the Heat were not a dynasty. 2 titles in 4 years is not a dynasty. You need at least 3 titles to be a dynasty. And at least 4 titles. Yeah, I mean, you need at least 3 titles in 6 or fewer years to be a dynasty. 4 titles in 9 or fewer years. 2 titles in 4 years is not a dynasty. So the Heat were not a dynasty, so you can't destroy a dynasty if you weren't a dynasty. If the team you beat wasn't a dynasty, you know? Yeah, I mean, come on. And then even if we want to get into it, listen, Kwhai Lenoard balled out in the finals against Miami, but that Heat team was, you could tell with how they played that year that they were not that great. The East was very weak that year, and they won the East in large part by default. Not to mention the fact that Indiana, their biggest threat, Indiana went 10-13 to finish that season. And they were never the same after they traded Danny Granger for, I think, Evan Turner. You know, the second they got rid of Danny Granger, I don't remember if that was straight, but the second they got rid of Danny Granger, that just ruined the Pacers. And they, went 7 with a 38-win Hawks team in the first round. They struggled against Washington. Roy Hibbert went from an all-star caliber center to a scrub. That was their legit only competition. The Raptors, on paper, could have done some things, but they choked against the old age, the AARP eligible Brooklyn Nets. So they were not that great. If you watched it, it was very similar to LeBron's last year in Cleveland this past time. They made the finals, but you could tell that they were done. Like Dwayne Wade, great player. He was, his last great season was the 2010-2011 season. His last excellent season was the 2011-2012 season. His last very good all-star caliber year was like the 2012-2013 season. And that 2013-2014 season was last year where he was even a semblance of Dwayne Wade. So he was getting old, and that's a big reason why LeBron left. Like, LeBron left mostly because D-Wade was old, I think. That's pretty much the biggest reason, because had D-Wade had he still been D-Wade, LeBron would not have left. Now, I don't think they beat the Spurs in the finals, but I do not believe that LeBron would have left Miami had Wade still been Wade at that point. And had Wade still been Wade, even if they lose, and I still believe they lose to the Spurs in the finals, then LeBron stays there, and he'd probably still be in Miami today. So, and even Kawhi, he played well in the finals, but remember, that Spurs team, they had no superstars. Duncan, Parker, and Ginobili were past their primes. And, what's his name? Kawhi was a young stud in his 3rd year, had yet to make an all-star team, was a role player at the time. That Spurs team, they were they played, there were so many contributions from every player on that team to where Patty Mills, Tiago Splitter, Marco Bellinelli were true. Well, maybe not Marco Bellinelli, but certainly Tiago Splitter and Patty Mills were key players to that team. So, and really, if you look at it, I think Dom 2K, when he ranked finals MVPs, I think he had Kawhi's with the Spurs at 9, and I kind of agree with that. I mean, he played well, but it wasn't lights out. I mean, it wasn't a lights-out MVP, and it's arguably the one Finals MVP outside of maybe Andre Iguodala in recent memory, where you could say he really wasn't the difference between the team winning and losing. Like, he was the kind of, well, I'll get to this past year, but to some degree he was the difference between winning and losing with the Raptors title. You know, KD was the difference certainly in the first finals between winning and losing. Well, obviously LeBron and his 3 finals MVPs, Dirk, Kobe, you know, so it was a good team. But really, he was good in the finals, and he played well, and he contributed. But there were better finals performances and more important finals performances throughout the course of time in all sports. So, and really, the Heat weren't a dynasty, and the Heat were like LeBron. I don't know, like, okay, I don't know, even had the Heat somehow won a championship, now maybe they would have had a shot against Oklahoma City, at least a better shot than they would have against San Antonio, but, I mean, unless something crazy had happened, even had they somehow won a title, I don't think LeBron goes back. To me, I think Wade was getting old, and he was no longer Dwayne Wade at that point. That's the biggest reason I think LeBron left, so... the Heat were pretty much done at that point. You know, they were an old roster. I remember stats, everyone was, talking about, obviously I referenced the Brooklyn Nets, how old they were, and like the Spurs, the Heat were nearly as old as the Nets that year. So, I mean, they struggled, at times. They won 11 and 12 in their last 23 games that year, the Heat. They made the playoffs. They won the Eastern Conference. Them winning the Eastern Conference that year was more to do with the East just not being up to snuff and then them being a great team. The real NBA Finals that year was San Antonio, Oklahoma City. So, to me, the Heat were going to be done regardless. And while Kwhai played well in that finals, he didn't play as well as it didn't kill the dynasty. As for San Antonio, we're bragging about how he handled it. He handled the San Antonio's thing, quite honestly, very poorly, in my opinion. It's very shady how he handled it, to where he was cleared to play, he didn't play. Now, I understand you know your body better than anyone, but there was some shadiness there, so that's not something that should be on your legacy. Even if you're better than what your image could look like, it's not something to brag about. Now, finally, with the Warriors dynasty. The Warriors dynasty was going to end whether they won the finals in a sweep. Because, let me tell you something, the Warriors dynasty was going to end when Kevin Durant left. That's a fact. And Kevin Durant, because so many people in the media bullied him and treated him like scum, and so many fans have said such garbage and spewed a lot of garbage and discredited his rings, KD was going to leave because he's like, oh, you don't think my rings are lit? Well, I'll go elsewhere someone rings. So Kevin Durant was leaving regardless. Had the Warriors been healthy and swept the Raptors, and KD averaged 40 points and won Finals MVP, all the idiots out there still would have said, you're on a 73-win team, the Warriors don't need you, they won without you, and Kevin Durant knew that as long as he was in Golden State, nothing he won, no matter how many championships, no matter how many MVPs he won, idiots would discredit it. Wrong? Yes, but that's just how it is. So Kevin Durant was leaving regardless. So, and while Kwhai dominated, and he played well, and he's the biggest reason the Raptors won, and I thank him for that, because I couldn't stand the Warriors winning a championship regardless. At the same time, Kevin Durant was going to leave regardless. Kevin Durant was gone. Nothing would have, I don't know what would have, really, quite honestly, the only way Kevin Durant probably would have stayed would have been had the Warriors lost the championship simply without him. Now, that's not quite what happened, because Iggy was banged up. Cousins was banged up. Clay missed a game and a quarter. And wasn't, so there were other things. But really, that's still, the fact is he only played 11 minutes and he dominated in the 11 minutes. He built an 8-point lead in one of their 2 wins. So really, the scenario was not that. So think about, it was actually a scenario where people at least would have to stop some of the garbage, at least, modify some of their statements that KD didn't earn his rings and that KD's rings didn't count and that the Warriors didn't need him because they won without him. They were 73-9 before he got there. It was going to at least have to be modified to a certain degree, maybe not completely, as there still be idiots saying that garbage, but at least some modification. The only way KD was... So really, the way the finals broke down was actually a way that KD would have potentially stayed. So, and the only way I think KD would have stayed would have been had the Warriors just been blown out. Had he been the only injury, a healthy... Maybe take out a healthy Cousins. Now, obviously, had they won with a healthy Cousins, and you really couldn't have used that argument for KD because Cousins wasn't there when KD arrived. But anyway... The point I'm trying to make is KD was gone and he was going to leave regardless. So the only way I think he would have stayed would have been had they lost the finals. Simply, had they lost the finals with a healthy Steph, a healthy Clay, a healthy Draymond, a healthy Iguodala, a healthy Livingston. Had they lost a team with those healthy players, okay, and had they lost to where it was clear... So an upgraded version of what happened of what did happen, that's really the only way I think KD would have stayed. So KD was leaving no matter what. So, and by the way, let's just call it this. I'm happy the Raptors won. Trust me, I am. But we got to be fair. I'm one of the many people that say had Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love been healthy in the first finals, the Cavs would have won. I had Chris Paul not got hurt in the Western Conference Finals, the Rockets would have won. So, in all fairness, Golden State, since I'm one of the people who says that, there's no way I believe a healthy Warriors team would have lost to the Raptors. No way. So, that also, you have to say, you can't take the title away from them, they earned it, and we are all happy for Toronto. However, let's be fair to Golden State. If we're going to belittle their first title and their third title because of injuries, yeah. So there you go. So injuries is the biggest reason the Warriors lost this past finals. And even had they won, I think KD leaves regardless, thus ending the dynasty. And they wouldn't have been able to afford... Remember, the only way they would have kept DeMarcus... The only way, DeMarcus Cousins, they signed on the cheap, so he was pretty much gone anyway. In fact, one of the only ways he was going to stay in Golden State was, under the circumstances that happened, he got hurt. So... The Warriors were going to lose pretty much Cousins and Durant anyway, so no, Kawhi didn't end the dynasty, because that dynasty was going to end regardless, and injuries are what helps speed it up. So, Kawhi, great player, have the utmost respect for him as a player, but he's not Thanos, and he ain't the Dynasty Slayer. So thank you very much. It would be very nice if you haven't yet to subscribe. It would be nice to do if you want. Thank you very much.